Welcome to Not a Great Whisperer podcast. This is your host, Katy Ray. I am joined with Lindsay DeAguila for the second time. This is so much fun for me because I've only had a couple people do 2 episodes so far. And I think it's really cool to jump into your journey now. So thanks for joining.
Sure. Thanks for having me again. It's awesome.
Where are you right now? Let's talk about that.
Okay. I am in Costa Rica. And yeah, it's a little bit, I'm in a place called Uvita. So it's definitely a little bit more south of commonly known Santa Teresa and a little bit more quiet and, just more jungle.
Yeah. Well, how did you what made you move to Costa Rica?
Well, I guess, it's always a compilation of things and of emotions that always lead you to certain choices. So I guess the straw that broke the camel's back in order for me to actually make the plunge and make the move was I met someone in March and in a retreat. And actually it was a meat retreat.
Awesome.
MEAT.
Oh.
And so, he lived in Costa Rica and it was one of those, moments where I thought, okay, well, here is life and the universe telling me, hey, since you were thinking about, moving to more of a wild place, here's your shot.
Oh my gosh, how cool. And what made you join, what made you sign up for a meat retreat? And MEAT.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was to really meet more like-minded people because I have always been on a nutrition journey and a wellness journey. And that wellness journey led me to eating a carnivore lifestyle. And that kind of became a little bit of alienating because when a lot of people are vegan and vegetarian, you don't have much in common or to talk about or to go to restaurants and, just talk about your food with. But so kind of making that turn about 2.5 years ago, it led me to just try to meet more people who eat meat and who kind of have the same perspective as I do on nutrition.
Yeah, that's so cool to me too, because when we last talked, you were actually starting your business of sauces and adding very nutritious, but you just kind of let that go, right? Because that's a lot of work and you're just trying to keep it as clean and holistic as possible, but it was probably super hard, right?
Right. Yeah. I did. And that was in January of 2022. I let that go. And actually, when I started the carnivore diet, I had just launched the business. So I was working months prior to it, not having carnivore, but I didn't want to let go of all the work that I did do to launch this business. And so, and so just after 2 years of doing that business, I kind of came to the point where I wasn't resonating with what I was doing anymore.
Yeah.
And also, there was just a lot of challenges that came with owning a business, and specifically a business that was food and had a shelf life. So there were plenty of challenges within that.
And I think that's important to notice that, your lifestyle didn't fit what you were promoting, and you wanted to make sure that you were wholeheartedly in it and you were doing the carnivore diet at that time. Carnivore lifestyle. I don't like to say that, but
yeah, I think
No, I was just going to say, I think that's still really awesome to just come to realization of that too,
Yeah. And I think that, for me, what was different this time around was I have always been following a path of seeking optimal health. Like, how can I make myself feel better? How can, I do this and be stronger? And so when I came to this carnivore way of living, it just kind of came to a screeching halt because it was opposite of what we have been taught, and it was opposite of what I was doing. And it made me think, okay, if I'm going to do this, instead of just screaming at the top of my lungs saying, oh, this works for me, this is awesome, a couple months late into eating carnivore, then I wanted to give it a real long-term try. So 2.5 years before I actually wanted to share with people the results of it, and not only just feeling it and looking at it, but also my actual blood work done as well too, so that I have something to prove.
Mm-hmm. And you do the blood work, of course, before you were all into it. Have you had what is like the most, like the biggest thing throughout this journey that's been like a aha moment for you?
Well,
there might be multiple.
Yeah, just the clarity. Well, from a woman's point of view, honestly, like the biggest moment was when my next menstrual cycle was completely different than what my menstrual cycles were like before, when I was eating more plant-based food. That it honestly, the PMS symptoms did not exist anymore. And I was thinking in my brain, I'm like, wow, if this can help these symptoms, I don't care what it's doing to my arteries, right? Which is also, that's not real either. But if it was clogging my arteries, I don't care. If I feel good, that during that time of month, and ladies know what I'm talking about, then I'm all in.
You're right.
That was one sort of aha moment, but the other was the consistency of it. I think prior to, there was a lot of issues such as just like low energy, the mood was unstable, and just unknown bloating. It's like, wow, I'm eating all these great foods, quote unquote, all these vegetables, and sometimes I have bloating that I just don't understand where it's coming from. I thought I was just eating super clean. And from a veggie perspective, I absolutely was. So I think that the other aha moment was just how consistent my moods are, how consistent I don't feel bloated at all, ever. And periods, as well as just feeling satiated and not feeling like I need a snack all day, not feeling like I have urges, and not feeling like I have these, sweet tooth or anything like that. So it's really
like
amazing.
PMS symptoms is like a sweet tooth thing. And I'm like, why has that always been a symptom? So I think this is like huge too, because, Paul's journey of being on the carnivore diet, but having you as a female with the feedback and going through it, it's really hard for a man to be like, you won't have any menstrual, but they're like, you will have no symptoms with your menstrual. It's like, really? Are you sure? Like, how do you know? And you like going through it and being like, no, this is working. Like, what can you do to help that? Because that's a huge thing. People are like debilitated. Like, people can't get up from menstrual cramps. Like,
right.
And
I used to experience it so bad, and I'm not one to take medication, but I had to do Midol at least 2 days out of that cycle. Had to. And I was out. I couldn't do anything. And, once going carnivore, I don't even know it's coming. And I'll say I'm more animal based now, and we can talk about that later. But the carnivore diet, that transition to that, and the lack of PMS symptoms, I don't even know it's coming, or I can continue on with my day as normal as I would not PMSing.
Yeah. So carnivore started you in the process. Did you notice those symptoms right away?
Oh yeah. It was my next cycle for sure. And what's more incredible too is that it's valid for other women as well. Those healing or feeling just better, the PMS symptoms are gone for a lot of other women who I communicate with via, Instagram and online, and they share their stories. And I'm so, it like makes me so happy that us women don't have to identify anymore with those symptoms, with being irritable, with headaches, with just this pain.
And just like, hey, when you're a woman, just go order a salad.
Right. It's like, no, we can eat.
I want a steak. And
steak, butter, honey. Like, this is not depriving.
So I have been doing like a lot of meetings, and no, I'm not like fully animal-based carnivore yet. But it's funny because I had to meet someone for lunch, and I literally just got a steak with nothing on it.
Yeah.
And they were just like, I'm like, yeah, I need my protein. That's all I said.
Yeah.
I just need my protein. I didn't want to get into it. I just ordered it. But it's just like, okay, well, how am I going to make the best of this? I'm at a restaurant. I have a lunch meeting. Like, I'm not going to not eat. But like, how do I make the best of it for myself? But it was super funny because I just like laughed to myself. Like, we make it so awkward because I'm not ordering a chicken salad. that, but I felt so okay after. I was like, I just had a piece of steak. I'm fine. Like, I'm just living. Like, it's just,
I know. And there's
so
like,
funny.
there's a couple of things there too. It's, we're so programmed to think that, one, it's unhealthy for you and it causes, colon cancer, heart disease, and so on and so forth. And so there's a, deprogramming that we have to do there, but as well as just calorie wise, like, what do you mean? A salad that is, maybe 250 calories, maybe, as opposed to, a steak with butter on it. I mean, for me, for my breakfast alone, I have 1,500 or so calories, give or take, in one sitting.
Yeah.
And that is like confusing for women, because we always think that we need to be in this like calorie prison. And honestly, from when I was more plant-based and eating less calories and probably working out more, I had maybe water retention. I was more bloated. I could see, I was looking through my pictures and of when I was like, wow, my face, even at a moment where I thought like I was at my healthiest, I look great. But the difference is just, it's crazy, incredible. And so I think that it's where I'm eating more calories, more protein, and I'm working out less. And, I not only feel great, but,
and your energy is, and I realized that last year I had started doing like macros, and my coach was adding macros, of course, more protein, but I had carbs and mostly fruit and sometimes rice and stuff. But I noticed that when I ate more calories, like I felt amazing. The good kind. I mean, like I wasn't getting crazy, but I was like, wow, to know that I have been just like survival mode, because I work out super early and I wouldn't eat sometimes till like 11, and I wasn't doing these things, and my body was just like, what are you doing? Like, why are you not eating any calories, right? Like, why are there no calories, good calories coming in? And it's just crazy how we've just been conditioned for so long to just believe like, oh no, if I eat this cucumber, I'm way better off.
Right. Like, and it's interesting. And then just, not only that, but then to give other people who maybe we are sitting down with meals with, to have other people give you looks. And so it's hard to, to come to have conversations with those people about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And so essentially I just tell people, if you are struggling with that, of maybe going to social events, you can either eat beforehand and after, and then you just choose not to eat. Or if in your case, you do want to get something to eat and you order a steak and that's all you order. I typically will say, I'm highly allergic to certain seed oils and just like oils. And so just having a very simple meal, I'm just trying to get to the bottom of how I feel. So such as that, and then there's also the family and friends aspect, where maybe you want to give them a little bit more information instead of just like shut it down right then and there. Yeah. So I'm just curious as to maybe even your situation, Katy. I know you kind of are sprinkling it in a little bit, this carnivore way of living. So I just would love to hear how you're doing on it so far, and what you're...
I mean, I'm not full. I'm talking to the family about it, of course, like how I would really want, I talked to my husband about it. He has a couple trips coming up, and he's like, I need to be like doing it for a couple months before I take trips. So I was like, okay, well, you can start after. I'm going to start sprinkling it in. I got my vitamins from y'all, and I see the benefit. I know the benefit. I really like my kids to not always go to like, can I get a popsicle every freaking day, or a cookie, or, I want them to like not feel those like urges. I 100% believe in the marketing and the crap they've given us. I mean, I was talking to my sisters the other day just about those like juices we used to get at the gas station down the street. That was just straight like syrup. I don't know.
What about the Slurpees from 7-Eleven? Am I allowed to call them out?
Yes. And you're just like, what? Like, oh my God. And then after that, I'm like, I don't even know how we acted after, but there's no way we were okay. Like, no. We were just like sitting down, and like, I totally see it. It's just, you're right. It's hard when you are out and you have to like explain and you want to like teach them. And I kind of like to gather everything. I've already started doing like products in the house that you've been like talking about, especially like pads and women's stuff, because I want to make sure my girls are a lot more prepared than me. Like I had endometriosis. I was on birth control for a long time. So I haven't been on it for a long time, but I do fully believe that my birth control and just what, like, I do feel like I got that. That's why all my kids are IVF. And I also think IVF messed with my body though too. I always talk about that. So I really want to just kind of see, because I think I have scar tissue from the shots in my stomach. I think like all that. I did a full panel of like hormones, just to kind of see. So I'll have that to compare it to once I like kind of go into this.
Right.
But it's been fun to learn, and I enjoy stuff that has medical backing around it. And I enjoy stuff that has research behind it, and it's not like pinpointing wrong, like, this is the wrong opinion without any backing, like just like coming from like your passion or heart. Like I like hearing why. And the oils is like everything.
Mind blown.
I was just like,
I know.
What?
It reminded me of when I was diagnosed with celiac disease. And for those of you that don't know, it is a, wheat and a gluten allergy. And so I got diagnosed with this when I was in college, and actually when I was just entering into college. So it was really interesting social experiment to try to implement this new diet when people are having pizza parties late night and beers and, especially something that I didn't know anything about. And, having your school card that was loaded with money so that you could use it in the cafeteria, but I couldn't use it in the cafeteria because
everything. Yeah.
No, I would get sick off of everything.
There. Yeah. So, there's not one option for you.
No, I would have to go to a local grocery store. And this is kind of when I communicated with the school that, okay, this money is to go to the grocery store. Then I get the receipt. It was like a health food grocery store, and I'd get the receipt, and then they would reimburse me back. For that. But it reminded me of that because when I started diving deep into the label of looking for wheat and gluten, things that would make me sick and ill, it was in everything. It was in mind blown. It was in soy sauce. It was in, beauty products. And I'm just like, what can I didn't know what to eat at that point. What can I eat? And so I had this very similar reaction to the same way of, talking about seed oils and processed sugars, but more specifically, seed oils are in absolutely everything. And to link it to the fact that that is why we are so sick and unhealthy today is just like, it's mind blowing, and it makes so much sense.
And it's just crazy because like they'll be like, okay, don't use this oil, use this one, or don't use olive oil because it burns like this, or use even like cooking wise. I'm like,
right.
I'm like, what? Like I'm like mind blown, but I get it because there's backing, and then you're just like sitting there like, what are we doing to people? Right. And I just, I don't like to get like too like angry about things or stuff like that. So I like just keep educating and kind of like moving on. But I think one of the things I do want to bring up that you and your boyfriend in videos, I'm always like, do they take off their shirts on layovers and just like run around? Like, do they have a shirt on before they got to that place? Is he uncomfortable in his shirt in the grocery store right now?
Well, maybe if if all the clothing wasn't made with plastics.
I know. But then I get it. Then I'm like, totally understand. I also would be.
Yeah. I mean, but no, I think it's just more the fact that in Costa Rica, it's just
I know. I'm just kidding.
So, no, it's hilarious.
I laugh with you because I love you. I think you're hilarious. But
yeah,
I know that it's fun to educate on things. It gets a little angry because you're like, oh my God, we've been always taught this, and you're just like, oh, okay, but you got to like just stay the course and be like, okay, there's education with this.
Yeah.
The vitamins I've been taking too, it have been really good. Great. I don't think it's great that you don't have to take something with food.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Because it is food. And that is the thing where I wish they didn't call it a supplement, right?
Yeah,
and we're talking about Heart and Soil, which is desiccated organs, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah.
Which is a company that my boyfriend Paul Saladino owns, and he's Dr. Saladino, which is what Katie is also talking about too. Carnivore MD 2.0 on Instagram. So yeah, these supplements are desiccated organs, and so they're freeze-dried organs. So it's not synthetic. It's just, it has a ton of nutrients in it. And this is always secondary to what I would consider the best source of it, which would be fresh organs. But there's a lot of people that either can't eat fresh organs, can't source them, and so on and so forth. So these are a good second option.
Yeah. And my dad and I have actually been looking locally because he's been wanting to find lamb. Because we're Lebanese and we used to make raw gibby all the time. And so when I was talking to him about this, he's like, let's go to meat markets together. And I was like, okay, Dad.
That's amazing.
So that's when we're going to kind of like dive in together. Because I do feel like when you do it with somebody too, it makes it like more fun to try different things.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's definitely a journey. I can't believe you've been doing it for 2.5 years. I know you said you're moving towards animal based, which is a little different. What is the difference for?
So carnivore is just strictly meat and fats, right?
Oh, without fruit and things that you
correct.
Got it.
So meat, fat, and dairies is carnivore, and then for animal based, we have the inclusion of fruit.
I have
a little bit of
fruit.
carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And some people are successful on more of the ketogenic side of things, and carnivore ketogenic, where they don't super low carb. But there's also a really good amount of us that thrive more on an animal based diet. And so this isn't necessarily to promote like, oh, this is the way, this is the diet, because I'm very much an advocate of people who like, if you guys are thriving and you're doing awesome in all aspects, in libido and mental health and strength, keep doing what you're doing, but maybe there comes a point where you feel like you're not thriving. And then if you want to search for other things, then, perhaps this is a really good option. And kind of like you said, Katie, there's like so much science and research to back that this is really an optimal way of living for long term than anything else. And that's what I love about this too, is that there is so much research, and not only that, but self-experimentation with myself, and then also hearing other stories of like people actually healing like their autoimmune diseases. Like, this is incredible. This is more than just, a weight loss or how I look. This is just like, they're changing lives, and it's for a greater purpose for somebody else. Kind of like you said, Katie, it's like, I want this for my kids. This isn't about me anymore. And this is about what the future is. You know how hard it is for us to deprogram ourselves of how we're eating the convenience food on the shelves. Well, it's going to be like quadruple, like 10 times worse for our kids if we don't do something now and change that mindset now.
Yeah. And you're totally right with that. Like, just thinking ahead, but like also for me, I remember just watching people when I worked at a wellness center, just like changing their lives, like cancer patients and stuff with cannabis and things like that. When you see things working for people that need it, or where it can really like change people, it's just like it's very good that you feel that. And you continue to be open-minded though, like you're listening to what people are doing and what's working for them. And I like people to keep that conversation going, because you're not always right, but it's like, here, this is what I know. This is what I do. This is the backing behind it. So when I first brought it up, this will be funny for you. I'm not sure if you ever heard it, but my dad brought up that too much protein gives you rickets.
Rickets.
So it's this thing where like your bones get all, and his uncle, so they used to like hunt and like leave the food on the counter and they'd eat it for days. Like that's how they used to, that's how my dad used to eat like meat. And he said his uncle would only eat meat, and he got rickets they said too much protein and like your bones get all, so you can ask Paul this later. He said it was because all he did was eat meat. And I'm like, Dad, that can't be all that he did. Right. And back in the day, he was smoking cigarettes.
And that's the thing, actually. There's so many studies out there, and this is why people link so many, like heart disease or something with eating meat, is because they're not just eating meat. They're smoking cigarettes. They're on their motorcycle. Like, they are exposed to just environmental toxins. Like, no. So it's hilarious.
And I was like, I don't think it was just the meat, because all of you were eating all the meat. Like, it's just like all of you were doing it. But it is because, and he's a nurse, so like he listens, and then he'll tell you things that he learned or something. And that's why I also like to hear Paul say, like, this is what we were taught in medical school.
Right.
This is what I learned now. Or this is, and that shows growth for people. And I know who you, like, I just know your heart. Like, like if people were like, oh, I don't believe in this, you'd be like, okay, that's great. I know that. And you're like very patient and you listen. And I like conversations like that. Yeah. That makes it easier for people to like understand what you're doing and why it's working. And that's important.
Right. And I've opened the line to take phone consultations too, because I do want that conversation to be had. Because again, even though I have this platform on Instagram where I'm, sharing this information, I don't think I'm the end all be all either of information, of sources of information, right? And I don't think that anybody thinks that either, but I want to hold a platform where other women can talk about these things, especially for women and just even humans in general. Like, we're communal humans. And so this is probably why it's so hard also for us to, eat differently than what people are doing right now, is because we do want to be a part of the community. And if we feel like we're shunned from the community, we're like, what's wrong with me? All right, I'll eat, the seed oils or the processed sugars piece, just to be a part of something. So I do love that you and your dad are like, really
it's fun. It's fun. Yeah, it's fun. And he's great. So it's great.
Yeah.
And I do feel like that you're right with like connection. People want to feel, that's why people probably reach out to you all the time, because they don't have access to talk to other people about it. And they just want more answers to understand for themselves. And that's important that you have that platform. I think it's great.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to health too, I'm not a medical doctor at all, but I think people are hitting a wall when it does come with their medical doctor and Western medicine, and just that they want to just treat it with medication as opposed to really seeking down the root cause. And I think what I am good at, and a lot of people ask me too, like, what are your credentials? And, it's a whole lifelong journey of just trying to see what works and what doesn't. Being diagnosed with celiac disease, being an athlete where I've always put food at the focal point to just how can I fuel my body for performance, as well as constant research and constant self-education and following thought leaders and following, professionals in the industry that were maybe once doctors and then, I guess, quote unquote, went rogue in the other way, but just with their knowledge of how to research things has really led me down the path to follow them. And so if there's anything that I feel that I can really help people is to troubleshoot these ailments, or to troubleshoot, well, I'm feeling sick. And so how can I get to feeling more optimal or feeling better? And so I've done it my entire life. And, part of it is, a big part of it is, and I think that people find it hard to transition to seek more optimal living. It's easier because it's more convenient to not do that, to not think about that. So let me help you think about these things and move you forward in a path of deprogramming. And so I think that is the struggle with people, is they are afraid to let go of what they thought was right. Or such as, I was a yoga teacher, or I went to yoga school, and, you're taught Ayurveda medicine and herbs and things like that are good for you, adaptogens. I created a business around, putting some of those adaptogens in my spreads and sauces, and come to find out, I'm like, what do you mean I have to let go of this business? I have to let go of this mindset. And it was something where I talked to myself, no, you need to adapt and chase after what you've always wanted to chase after, is how can we make the body more optimal, more resilient? And if that means letting go of old ideals, then that's what you have to do.
That's so awesome. I can't believe, I love that you're here, and, you just stayed the course, it's just, it's super cool to watch.
Yeah. Thanks.
What are some things you did in the beginning of this with I know it was 2.5 years ago, so there's a lot more information probably now, but 2.5, what did you start doing? Just looking at different options for yourself and find the carnivore diet? What was your main, how did you go about researching? I think that's important for people. Where do you start?
Sure. I guess hopefully I'm going to answer your question.
Okay.
But so just direct me if you're like, no, that's not what I was asking. Okay. So I guess, again, as I've always gone down the rabbit hole of searching for the best, nutrition and simplicity really is how I start, is just trying to find the most simple avenue, because I feel like there is something to be said about addition by subtraction. And so kind of got in this chaotic world of, too many things or too many adaptogens, and walking down the path of listening to other scientists or other doctors talk about plant chemicals and Fat for Fuel by Mercola. And so kind of going down this path and always having the conversation. And I think it's important. It's almost a double-edged sword, right? If you have a conversation with people, they'll either be receptive, and then you can, when you create this positive space, you can just be like, same thing like I said I was doing with the community of feminine, of women, is just we can talk about these things and you create this safe, amazing space where everybody can thrive. But then the other side of it is where, then you have people who either judge you or tell you you're doing it wrong or things like that. So I was able to create this space around me. So I think community is super important. And it started actually with my family. And so when I spoke to specifically more like my brother and my mother about it, and us just always trying to seek the best, nutrition for ourselves and the best for our family, we would go back and forth. So I originally told him like all the things that I found out about gluten and wheat when I was first diagnosed with celiac disease, right? And then when I found Mercola and Fat for Fuel, then I would share with him that, and then he would share with me, another if it was what was it, like autoimmune. I forget what the book was, but he shared with me that. So it was like science that I didn't know. And then I'm like, oh, great, let me go down this rabbit hole. And then I would share with him Gundry, which is the first, step into the plant toxins. And then we're like, oh, shoot, just like another thing that we have to learn or unlearn. And then he shows up with this book and he's like, Linz, you've been fooled. Let me show you what I've got. And it's called The Carnivore Code. And this is what Dr. Paul Saladino wrote, is the Carnivore Code.
Oh my God, your brother showed you the book first?
So he showed it to me and he was like, I have one better for you.
And it was Paul's?
Yeah. And he's like, you think Gundry was, what was crazy or whatever with the plant chemicals and talks about the plant toxins. He's like, oh, this is like another step. And of course I'm like, no, I don't want to read it because I'm already like, I have a business. I'm like, of plant-based, absolutely not. And so he's like, do this. And so I just kind of kept on looking at my nightstand, like side-eyeing it, like, I don't really want to go down this path, but I kind of have to, because if it's, oh
my God, does your brother laugh at this now? Like, this is insane. That's hilarious. And you're like, I'm not reading this book. I will not read this book.
Yeah. No, I can't read this book.
I don't want to read this book.
Yeah. So then the first few pages I was in. I mean, the science made sense and I couldn't look away anymore. And then, of course, I was, someone who's self-experimenting, had to try it first before, saying anything.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what makes
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it does. The connection. Okay. Yeah. And I think it really shows too, just how you've always done that, like with your dad, with your mom and your brother. And like, I read this book, try this one out. Look at this vision, like, look at this theory. Yeah. And I think that's so important. And I love that because I don't think people do that enough, where they look at all sides.
Yeah.
To then understand what is best way. And we just see like one side and we're like, oh,
right.
And that's funny though, how you're like, no, I have a plant-based business. I can't look at this. No, I have no time.
I don't want to deny it and make the excuse, but.
And that's super crazy. That it was Paul's book. That makes me like, what?
I know.
Oh my God,
Stuff
that's so
to
cool.
do tracks.
That's so cool. You're like, wait, you mean your boyfriend? Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
I love that. And it's really fun to like, just watch how support is important. Cause I told my husband, like, if we're doing this, we have to kind of be all in together. Because it's really hard to just be like, yeah, I'm doing this. Good luck over there. Like, it's just, it's not really doable. It's really hard. Like, we did paleo together back in the day and it was just like, we were great at it. So it's definitely a journey. I'm definitely getting a ton of information. And I just think, that showing that you've always kind of been like that, you want to educate yourself first and you want to do it yourself first, also shows how you're a good source to be able to ask questions and communicate with. So that's awesome. What's like next things? Like, what do you see happening? Are you going to start doing group webinars or anything like that for women? Or are you just going to keep kind of like consulting people on the side?
Yeah, I think consultations right now too, especially as I'm building the growing community and the platform, because I do want to hear, from people and hear the people who are watching me. I do want to hear how else I can support, people. And so I think it's really good to understand that side of things. And then also, of course, help them on their journey, because that's what we're here for. And so that's one aspect of it. And then actually, I want to create a group. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet.
Okay.
But it's essentially what the group is a supportive group that is female focused, that has a challenge kind of similar to, so Heart and Soil, the supplement company, is doing an Animal Based 30, and that actually starts in like 15 days. So if you're interested in the challenge, it's a free community, you can go online, and there's also like trainers on there that can help guide you and answer questions too that sometimes that I can't get to every day in my DMs and or online. Like I can't put out a million different reels per day. I'm trying, but so there's that where it's Animal Based 30. So you just try it for 30 days, right? It's not a weight loss thing. It's just try this and see how you feel. And if this makes you feel awesome and great, like you can utilize the resources on there to just give it your best shot. So I love that. And it's co-ed, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that there's a little bit more of a conversation for the women's side of things. And so with them, I think it would be super helpful to support the women community, because it was needed. And so it's going to be a solely based women's group called something 31. And that's because instead of 30 days, we're so awesome that we're going to do one more. So it's 31 days
something
of
31.
The same thing, but a little bit more focused from the women's perspective. And so the consultations will lead to that. And then as well as be a part of a retreat that has already happened, which was the meat retreat, which where I met Paul. But we're having that, our third annual one, next, I think it's April. We don't have the exact dates yet.
Awesome.
But just being involved in more of that community aspect and just raising more awareness and sharing the message, really. So that's kind of what the next steps are, is just building a big community.
This is so awesome. I think it's so cool how your journey's. I mean, you've always been really focused on health, feeling your best, not always like your physique or anything like that. It just kind of comes with the territory, right? But you've very much been focused on it. It's really super cool to see you here.
Yeah, thanks. I know. I'm super pumped about it.
After your one thing comes out, we'll have another episode and talk about the something 31.
The something 31. Yeah.
But I think this has been awesome, and I think. Knowing that you exist for just other questions, and because sometimes women might be turned off. You just see a bunch of dudes talking about eating meat,
right?
And I know. You're like, how
and
can you make this more?
It's so off-putting, and I think that was a lot. When I did start the account, every woman DM'd me, was like, I'm so
God
happy
you're here.
Yeah, they're like, I don't know if I could take Paul yelling at me anymore, so I'm so glad your approach
I think that's
is different.
just his tone. I think it's his tone. I found out. I was like, it never changes.
Yeah,
he seems happy. He seems happy. So I think his volume just stays that way.
Yeah.
So it's so funny, but it's so right, because we're different human beings, and you just stop yelling at me next to Doritos. Don't yell at me anymore in front of Doritos. Okay.
It's like, all right, I get it. I'll put the Doritos down.
I got it. You're behind. I got it. I understand. But just don't yell at me. Can you bring a girl in here to tell me about how tampons and pads suck and we need these?
Yeah. Hilarious.
I know. It's so funny, but you're right. We've just been trained, and it's just educating yourself, and you're not pushing this down someone's throat. You're just here's some info, look into it. This is what's worked for me. And I love things like that. I just feel like that's the way to approach things. Not this is always going to be the best, but this is working. How can you try to incorporate this? And hopefully I have a cooler story later on when we do this again.
Yeah, I'm super pumped to follow your journey. Yeah. It's and the journey is real, and though when I first started carnivore, and maybe this is just the way that I'm built, it was immediate for me, where I'm like, okay, switch it, boom, I'm done. And that's just how I work, but not everybody works that way. You know, sometimes it's a slow process. Sometimes it's first like getting rid of the processed sugars and then start there. Or then it's like getting rid of the seed oils and let's start there. And then still having some carbohydrates in there. So,
and that's awesome that you see that, because you're right. Like, especially with 3 little ones, I'm like, how do I incorporate like more of this and like get used to cooking this or get used to how to cook that, you know? So it's a process for me. I would sometimes wish it could just be like a cold turkey transition, but it's also kind of fun to learn new things and kind of insane at the same time. So you're just like,
but I love that perspective. I think that if everybody had that perspective, like, okay, I'm learning something new and this should be like, this is going to be fun. It's like, let me go to class, learn a new language, and then I can speak it, right?
Just quickly.
You know, and I think people find it more so as a chore, or perhaps their brain is just thinking from that perspective that it is. And so maybe if we did flip our perspective like that, where, you know, I'm going into class every day and I'm learning something. I can't solve it all tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's like surfing over here, right? I was not a surfer. But I thought when in Costa Rica, I should surf, right? Surfing is so challenging. And I got so stuck on the fact that I needed to catch waves and do it and be awesome. And, you know, I'm a professional surfer the next day. No. Let me tell you, it's very humbling, especially when you're getting knocked over by waves and not even getting up on your board at all. But when I started to think of it differently, because I was getting so frustrated, getting so down on myself. And I think that this applies across all boards, whether it's, you know, you have stubborn weight that you not losing weight and, or you're just feeling sick and unhealthy, you know, and nothing's changing right away. This is what's wrong with our society too, is because it's just like a lot of instant gratification, which it's not going to be instant gratification. And so once I thought to myself, okay, surfing, I'm just going to think of this as swimming and paddling out, because that's the biggest battle, is to actually like paddle through the white water and just get better understanding the ocean, get better learning about the tides, just get better learning about my environment before actually doing what I want to do in order to reach my goal, right? There's so many more steps to do, and it starts with reframing your mind. And I think that just translates across all boards, even when it comes to learning something new, learning, and, you know, physically, mentally, or in this case, unlearning what we've already been taught.
Yeah, and there's got to be other options, you know, and there are. So it's insane just to, it's crazy to look at it that way. That's why I try to just take it as the fun. You know, I like to have fun.
Yeah.
But so we got to have fun with it.
Yeah, it's just carnivore 101.
That's it.
A few months it'll be 102.
I know. Also, carnivore is a very aggressive word.
Yeah.
And I kind of embrace it. I'm going to embrace it.
Well, animal based. Well, now we're animal based.
Yeah,
so
I like animal based.
Yeah.
Where can we find you, Lindsay?
Yes.
Animal Based
Bae. Online, I have an Instagram, Animal Based Bae 2.0. I'm also on TikTok. I'm not very active with that at all because I can only do so much in a day, but hopefully.
You are your own content manager, girl. You're fine. Don't worry.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
You're like, I will be back on with another video. I have gotten questions. Let me do this one first. One topic at a time.
I know, but that's where people can find me right now.
But you're doing it. And I thank you so much for joining today. Yeah. This has been a pleasure. We'll do this again. I'll see you soon too. But you're amazing. I really enjoy just how you approach things, how open you are about things and honest. So you're amazing. Heart to you.
Thanks so much, Katie. Yes, to you too as well. I'm so happy to have been a part of this event.
Thank
and
you.
I look forward to seeing you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.